The suns were setting over the quiet farming colony of Arvin III. The sky was painted with shades of gold and orange, and a soft breeze moved through the tall grass fields. Cole stood at the edge of his property, hands resting on the old wooden fence he had built himself. Life here was simple. Plant, harvest, rest. Nothing like the chaos of the old days. But tonight, something felt different. Cole's eyes lifted to the sky as he heard a distant hum. At first, he thought it was just a cargo hauler or a mining shuttle. But then he saw it, sleek, dark, and fast, cutting through the clouds in a smooth, silent glide. His heart skipped a beat. That wasn't a normal ship. It was a Scifi warcraft. He hadn't seen one of those in over 8 years. Memories rushed back to him. Of burning skies, alien cities in ruins, and battles where humans and aliens stood side by side. And of her, Sarah, the warrior girl. They had fought together during the last Great War. She was unlike anyone he had ever met. Fierce, graceful, loyal. A skilled fighter from a proud alien race. She never smiled much, but when she did, it stayed in his mind like a warm fire during winter. They grew close, shared stories during long nights, and trusted each other when no one else would. But then the war ended. She left. No goodbye, no message, only silence. The ship landed just outside his field, quiet but strong. The wind blew dust and dry grass across the yard. Cole didn't move. He just stared as the ramp lowered and a tall figure stepped out. It was her, Sarah. Her armor was worn, scratched from battles he had never seen. Her long dark hair was tied back, and her blue-tinted skin shimmered faintly in the evening light. She still had those sharp eyes, the ones that always saw more than he said. She walked toward him slowly, like she wasn't sure he would still be there. Cole's breath caught in his throat. He didn't know what to say. He had imagined this moment so many times, but now that it was real, his mind went blank. She stopped a few feet from him. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Sarah knelt on one knee and placed her hand over her chest, a traditional Scifi sign of respect and loyalty. Her voice was calm but soft. "You kept your promise." Cole blinked. "Sarah, I." She stood again, taller than him by a few inches. "You said you'd stay here, that this place would be your home. I hoped I'd find you." "I did stay," he said quietly, "but I didn't think you'd come back." "I didn't think I could," she admitted. They stood in silence again, watching each other like ghosts from another time. The suns were almost gone now, and stars began to appear in the sky. "Why are you here?" Cole finally asked. Sarah looked away, her jaw tightening. "Because you're in danger." Cole frowned. "Danger from what?" "The war didn't end for all of us," she said. "There's a splinter group, those who hate the alliance between humans and Scifi. They found out about us, about you. They're hunting anyone connected to the peace talks. You're on their list." Cole shook his head slowly. "I've been out of the fight for years. I don't matter anymore." "To them, you do," Sarah said. "You were the human strategist who helped turn the tide. And you were close to me. That makes you a target." She stepped closer, her voice lower now. "I came back to protect you." Cole laughed once, not with humor, but disbelief. "You disappeared without a word. Now you show up and tell me I'm in danger." "I'm sorry," she said softly. "I wanted to come back sooner, but I couldn't. There were missions, orders, and guilt." He looked into her eyes, the same eyes he remembered from long ago, filled with pain, pride, and something else, something unspoken. "You should come inside," he said finally. "We can talk more. You look like you haven't rested in weeks." Sarah nodded. "Thank you." As they walked toward the small house, Cole glanced at her from the corner of his eye. She had changed, more serious, maybe even a little haunted, but she was still her, still the Sarah he remembered. He wondered what else she hadn't told him yet. And deep down, a small flame of hope flickered. She came back. But at what cost? Cole sat across from Sarah at the small wooden table in his home. The room was dimly lit, with only the light from the fireplace casting shadows on the walls. The air was heavy with unspoken words, but Cole knew he couldn't let the silence stretch on forever. He had to know. He had to understand why she came back. Sarah was staring into the flames, her fingers tapping on the edge of her plate. Her eyes were distant, like she was seeing something far beyond the room, something that hurt too much to face. Cole shifted in his chair, trying not to stare too hard at her. He didn't want to make her uncomfortable, but he had so many questions. "I never thought you'd return," Cole said quietly. "You just disappeared after the war. One day, you were there, fighting beside me. And the next, you were gone. No letter, no warning." Sarah took a deep breath, finally looking up at him. "I didn't want to leave," she said softly. "But I had no choice. I was called back to my people. The war didn't end for all of us. There were still battles to be fought." Cole leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "And you couldn't even send a message. You couldn't tell me you were alive." Her gaze dropped to her hands, and for a moment, Cole could see the walls she'd built around herself. "I couldn't risk it," she said. "There were forces in play that I couldn't fight alone. I had to focus on the war. And the last thing I wanted was to drag you into it." The air between them felt thick, as if every word was pushing them further apart. Cole felt the old ache in his chest, the same ache he'd felt all those years ago, when Sarah vanished without a trace. He had tried to move on, to convince himself that he had just been a passing memory to her. But now, seeing her again, all those feelings came rushing back. "Then why come back now?" Cole asked. "The war's over. We have peace. The galaxy is healing. What changed?" Sarah's eyes darkened, and she sat up straighter, her posture stiffening. "The war never truly ended. Not for everyone. There are factions still fighting. Factions that want to destroy everything we built. They want to bring back the chaos, to tear down everything humans and Scifi fought for. They're hunting me. And they know about you." Cole's heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean, they know about me?" "They know you were involved in the peace talks. You were a key figure in ending the war," Sarah explained. "To them, that makes you a target. They're coming after anyone who had a hand in the peace process, and I couldn't just sit back and let them take you." Cole's mind was racing. The peaceful life he had built here was suddenly in danger. He had thought that the hardest battles were behind him, that he could live out his days in quiet solitude. But now, it seemed like the war wasn't finished yet, not for Sarah, and not for him. "Why didn't you just go to the authorities?" Cole asked, his voice rising in frustration. "You could have warned me sooner. Why did you have to come all the way back here?" Sarah stood up suddenly, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. She looked down at him, her face a mixture of regret and resolve. "I made a promise, Cole," she said, her voice firm. "I promised you I would return. And I'm not going to break that promise, no matter what." Her words hung in the air, filling the space between them with an uncomfortable weight. Cole wanted to believe her. He wanted to trust that she had come back for the right reasons. But the pain of her sudden disappearance still stung, and he couldn't just forget it. "You left without a word," Cole said, his voice softer now. "And now you're asking me to trust you again, just like that." Sarah's expression softened, and she stepped closer to him. "I know I hurt you. I'm sorry. I thought I was doing the right thing. But now, everything's different. I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere." Cole looked up at her, his heart still unsure. "And what do we do now? Just wait for them to come after us?" Sarah hesitated. "We run. We find a safe place. I can protect you, but I can't do it alone." Cole shook his head slowly. "I didn't ask for any of this, Sarah. I wanted to live in peace." "I know," she said quietly, "but sometimes peace comes with a cost." Cole looked out the window, his thoughts spinning. The quiet life he had wanted was slipping further and further away. But he couldn't deny it. Sarah had always been a part of him, even when he tried to forget. And now she was back. They were tied together by something neither of them could escape. "All right," he said finally, his voice heavy with uncertainty. "Let's figure out how to stop them." Sarah nodded, her eyes meeting his. "We'll fight together, just like we did before." The fire in the hearth crackled, and for the first time in years, Cole felt a flicker of hope. But he knew it wouldn't be easy. The galaxy had changed, and so had they. The quiet life he had imagined was no longer possible. But maybe, just maybe, they could still find a way to survive. Together. The days after Sarah's return passed in a blur of tension and uncertainty. Cole had never imagined his life would be turned upside down by an alien warrior. Yet here they were, planning to run from the very place he had worked so hard to make his home. They spent hours discussing the enemy, those who still wanted to destroy the peace that humans and Salari had worked so hard to build. Sarah spoke of a dark faction within her own people, a group that opposed the alliance with humans and the end of the war. They saw the treaty as a betrayal, and anyone involved in the peace talks became a target. Cole couldn't help but feel a rising fear as Sarah described their enemies: merciless, efficient, and relentless. They had been tracking her, and now they knew about him. She had no choice but to return. If they were coming for him, he couldn't just sit and wait. He had to prepare. "I should have known," Cole muttered, pacing around his small home. "I thought I could be left alone here, but now, everything's different." Sarah sat at the table, her eyes watching him closely. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "I didn't want to drag you back into this, but you're not safe here." Cole stopped pacing and turned to face her. "Do you think they'll just leave us alone if we run? We can't hide forever." Sarah shook her head. "No, they won't. But we need to act fast. If we leave now, we can make it to the outer colonies. It's less likely they'll search there. And I'll keep you safe. I promise." Cole looked at her, unsure. "How long can we stay ahead of them?" "As long as we stay unpredictable, we can hold them off. But if we stay in one place for too long, they'll find us. We need to be constantly on the move." The plan felt like an impossible choice. The peaceful life he had always dreamed of was slipping away with every word Sarah spoke. But he couldn't deny it. This wasn't just her battle anymore. It was his too. The moment she arrived, everything changed. He didn't know where this would end, but he wasn't going to let her fight alone. "All right," Cole said finally, his voice steady. "Let's go. I'll pack what we need. But where exactly are we going?" Sarah stood and walked over to him, her eyes serious. "We need to head to the outer colonies. The Zadara system is far enough away. We can hide there, regroup, and figure out our next move." The Zadara system was known for being a haven for outcasts and those fleeing the law. It was a place where people didn't ask questions, a perfect place to disappear. "I'll get the ship ready," Sarah said, walking towards the door. "Meet me at the hangar in an hour." "And Cole," she paused, turning to look back at him. "Stay quiet. Stay sharp." Cole nodded, his heart racing. As much as he wanted to deny it, he knew Sarah was right. They were not safe here. The enemy was out there, and they wouldn't stop until they found them. He couldn't let that happen. An hour later, Cole was at the hangar, standing beside the sleek, dark ship that had brought Sarah back to him. It was unlike anything he had ever seen, built for speed, with sharp edges that made it look almost like a weapon in itself. The hull was smooth and metallic, reflecting the faint light of the 2 moons above them. Sarah was already inside, checking the ship's systems. "We're ready to go. Get in." Cole took a deep breath and climbed aboard. As he settled into the seat beside her, he could feel the weight of the situation pressing on his chest. They were leaving everything behind. His home, his life, his past. And yet there was no other choice. "I'm glad you're with me," Sarah said, her voice softer now, almost uncertain. She glanced at him as she adjusted the ship's controls. I didn't want to ask you to leave everything you've built. Cole looked over at her, his gaze steady. You didn't ask. I'm here because I want to be. I'm not going to let you face this alone. Sarah gave him a small nod, her expression softening for just a moment. Then she turned back to the controls, focusing as the ship powered up. The low hum of the engines filled the air, vibrating beneath their feet as the ship prepared to lift off. As the hangar doors opened, Cole's heart raced. He had no idea what was ahead, but he knew one thing for sure. They were in this together. The ship shot into the sky, soaring above the planet's surface. The stars stretched out before them, a sea of endless possibilities. But Cole knew the peace he had once hoped for was a distant dream. There was no turning back now. The enemy would come, they would fight, and maybe, just maybe, they could win. The ship sliced through the stars, the darkness of space stretching endlessly in front of them. The hum of the engines was constant, a steady pulse that made the vast emptiness of the universe feel strangely close. Cole sat in his seat, staring out the window, watching as the familiar blue-green world of Arvin 3 faded into the distance. It had been his home for years, and now it was nothing more than a memory, tucked away behind them. Sarah was focused on the controls, her sharp eyes scanning the sensors. She was a woman of action, and Cole could see it in the way she moved. Calm, precise, ready for whatever came next. But there was something else in her eyes now. Oh wait, she had never been one to show weakness, but as the stars outside stretched farther and farther away, Cole could tell that she was carrying more than just the threat of the enemy. She was carrying the guilt of her long absence. After what felt like an eternity of silence, Cole spoke. Do you think they'll follow us? Sarah's fingers hovered over the controls as she considered his question. Her voice was steady, but there was an edge of uncertainty beneath it. They'll try. They always do. But we're faster. As long as we keep moving, we'll be safe. Cole glanced at her. And if we don't? If we don't, Sarah said, her gaze darkening for a moment, then we'll fight. I won't let them take you. The words were simple, but they carried a weight of their own. Cole could feel the resolve in her voice, the same resolve that had driven her to become the warrior she was. He wasn't sure if he was ready for the battles ahead, but he wasn't about to back down. Not with her by his side. The ship's engines shifted slightly as Sarah adjusted their course. She didn't look at him, but Cole could tell she was thinking. Thinking about the past, about the decisions that had brought them to this moment. I never wanted to bring you into this, Sarah said quietly, her voice carrying the weight of years. I wanted you to live your life in peace, like you always wanted. Cole leaned back in his seat, his eyes never leaving her face. You didn't bring me into anything. I'm here because I want to be. I'm here because I couldn't stand the thought of you fighting alone. Sarah turned her head, her gaze locking with his for the first time in hours. There was something in her eyes, something soft, something vulnerable. It was only for a moment, but it was enough. I never thought you would say that, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Cole shook his head. You don't give yourself enough credit, Sarah. You think I wouldn't fight by your side. After everything we've been through, you know I would. Her lips curved into a small smile, the kind that Cole remembered. It was the first real smile he'd seen from her since her return. He couldn't help but smile back. They sat in silence for a while, the only sound the hum of the engines and the soft whir of the ship's systems. The stars outside were so close now, they seemed like endless points of light, stretching on forever. It was both beautiful and terrifying. After some time, Sarah spoke again, her voice breaking the quiet. We'll reach the Zadara system in a few hours. There's a hidden colony there, out of sight, out of mind. We can lay low for a while, regroup, and figure out our next move. Cole nodded, but his thoughts were elsewhere. How long do you think we can stay hidden? How long before they catch up? Sarah's eyes flickered to the sensors. If we're lucky, maybe a week, maybe more. But it won't be long before they start searching everywhere. They'll catch up sooner or later. Cole felt a tight knot form in his stomach. The fear of being hunted, of not knowing where they would go next, gripped him. He had never been the type to run, to hide. But now, with Sarah beside him, it felt like the only choice. Is there a way to stop them? To end this once and for all? He asked. Sarah hesitated, her fingers lightly tapping on the controls. Maybe. But it won't be easy. The faction I'm running from, well, they're not like the other enemies we fought. They're ruthless, and they'll do anything to win. What does that mean for us? Cole asked, his voice steady despite the rising anxiety in his chest. It means we fight, Cole. We survive. We do whatever it takes. There was a pause, and then Cole spoke again, quieter this time. Sarah, I'm not afraid of fighting. But I want you to know something. Whatever happens, I'm not going anywhere. Not without you. She looked at him, her expression unreadable for a moment. Then, slowly, she nodded. I know. And that's why I came back. Because I knew you'd stand by me. The stars outside were growing brighter as they neared their destination. The Zadara system, a place of refuge. A place where they could hide for now. But even as they neared the safe haven, Cole knew they were far from out of danger. The enemy was out there, somewhere in the vastness of space, and they wouldn't stop until they found them. As the ship glided closer to their destination, Cole made a silent promise to himself. They would fight. They would survive. And no matter what, they would face the future together. The ship arrived in the Zadara system, under the cover of night. The lights of the distant planets twinkled like stars scattered across the sky. Sarah expertly guided the ship toward a small, hidden colony on the third moon of Zadara. This was a place where few people came and even fewer asked questions. It was the perfect place to lay low. As they descended through the atmosphere, Cole sat quietly, staring out the window. The distant world below them was peaceful, almost too peaceful, a stark contrast to the life he had left behind. The sound of the engines humming was the only noise filling the cabin. How long can we stay here? Cole asked, breaking the silence. We can stay for a while, Sarah replied, her voice calm. The people here don't like the trouble the rest of the galaxy brings. They'll keep our presence quiet. But we can't stay forever. The enemy will be looking for us. It's only a matter of time. Cole nodded but didn't say anything more. He wasn't sure what to expect from this place, but he trusted Sarah. She had led him this far, and he wasn't going to question her now. The ship touched down softly on the moon's surface, and Sarah immediately began shutting down the systems. Let's get out. We'll meet with the locals and make sure everything's set before we rest. Cole followed her as they exited the ship. The cold moonlight bathed the barren landscape in a pale glow. They walked through a small, hidden settlement, the buildings modest and surrounded by thick trees that shielded them from any unwanted attention. The people here seemed to know Sarah. They nodded in recognition as she passed, but no one stopped to ask questions. After a brief conversation with a few of the locals, Sarah turned to Cole. The leaders want to meet with us. It's not entirely safe here, but it's the best we have right now. We'll need their help. Cole felt a knot tighten in his stomach. What exactly are they going to help with? He asked, his voice cautious. Nothing too dangerous, Sarah assured him, though her voice lacked the usual confidence. The leaders here can provide shelter and resources, but there's one thing I need to do first. Something I promised myself I'd take care of before we go any further. What's that? Cole asked, still uncertain. Sarah hesitated, her fingers lightly tapping on the controls. Maybe. But it won't be easy. The faction I'm running from, well, they're not like the other enemies we fought. They're ruthless, and they'll do anything to win. What does that mean for us? Cole asked, his voice steady despite the rising anxiety in his chest. It means we fight, Cole. We survive. We do whatever it takes. There was a pause, And then Cole spoke again, quieter this time. Sarah, I'm not afraid of fighting. But I want you to know something. Whatever happens, I'm not going anywhere. Not without you. She looked at him, her expression unreadable for a moment. Then, slowly, she nodded. I know. And that's why I came back. Because I knew you'd stand by me. The stars outside were growing brighter as they neared their destination. The Zadara system, a place of refuge, a place where they could hide for now. But even as they neared the safe haven, Cole knew they were far from out of danger. The enemy was out there, somewhere in the vastness of space, and they wouldn't stop until they found them. As the ship glided closer to their destination, Cole made a silent promise to himself. They would fight. They would survive. And no matter what, they would face the future together. The ship arrived in the Zadara system under the cover of night. The lights of the distant planets twinkled like stars scattered across the sky. Sarah expertly guided the ship toward a small, hidden colony on the third moon of Zadara. This was a place where few people came, and even fewer asked questions. It was the perfect place to lay low. As they descended through the atmosphere, Cole sat quietly, staring out the window. The distant world below them was peaceful, almost too peaceful, a stark contrast to the life he had left behind. The sound of the engines humming was the only noise filling the cabin. How long can we stay here? Cole asked, breaking the silence. We can stay for a while, Sarah replied, her voice calm. The people here don't like the trouble the rest of the galaxy brings. They'll keep our presence quiet. But we can't stay forever. The enemy will be looking for us. It's only a matter of time. Cole nodded but didn't say anything more. He wasn't sure what to expect from this place. But he trusted Sarah. She had led him this far, and he wasn't going to question her now. The ship touched down softly on the moon's surface, and Sarah immediately began shutting down the systems. Let's get out. We'll meet with the locals and make sure everything's set before we rest. Cole followed her as they exited the ship. The cold moonlight bathed the barren landscape in a pale glow. They walked through a small, hidden settlement, the buildings modest and surrounded by thick trees that shielded them from any unwanted attention. The people here seemed to know Sarah. They nodded in recognition as she passed, but no one stopped to ask questions. After a brief conversation with a few of the locals, Sarah turned to Cole. The leaders want to meet with us. It's not entirely safe here, but it's the best we have right now. We'll need their help. Cole felt a knot tighten in his stomach. What exactly are they going to help with? He asked, his voice cautious. Nothing too dangerous, Sarah assured him, though her voice lacked the usual confidence. The leaders here can provide shelter and resources, but there's one thing I need to do first. Something I promised myself I'd take care of before we go any further. What's that? Cole asked, still uncertain. I have to face my people, Sarah said, her voice quieter. The Exilari Tribunal. I can't keep running from my past. They need to know that I didn't betray them. Cole felt his heart sink. You're talking about the tribunal on Vraxin 9. They're the ones who judge the loyalty of all warriors. You can't just go there. It's dangerous. Sarah's face hardened. I've made my decision. I won't keep running. If I don't face them now, they'll come after me anyway. And this time, I won't be running. She was right, Cole realized. If Sarah didn't do this, it would haunt her forever. But still, the thought of her walking into a tribunal that could easily condemn her was terrifying. Will they listen to you? Cole asked quietly. Sarah nodded slowly. I don't know, but I'm not going to hide anymore. I've fought too many battles to let fear decide my future. Cole wasn't sure what to say. He knew she was right, but the idea of facing the Exilari Tribunal made his stomach twist. They were known for being unforgiving, especially with someone like Sarah, who had been part of a failed alliance. I'll go with you, Cole said, his voice firm. I don't care what happens. I'm not letting you face this alone. Sarah turned to him, surprised. For a moment, her gaze softened, but then the warrior within her returned. You don't have to come. This is my fight. I'm not letting you fight it by yourself, Cole replied, his voice steady. We'll face it together. Just tell me what to do. Sarah studied him for a moment, as if searching for something in his eyes. Then, finally, she nodded. All right. We'll do this together. The journey to Vraxen 9 was long, and the atmosphere was tense. They traveled in silence, each lost in their thoughts. Sarah was preparing herself for the tribunal, and Cole was trying to imagine what it would be like to stand before a group of powerful Xalari warriors. He had never seen anything like it before, and he wasn't sure what kind of reception they would get. As they neared the tribunal city, the ship was met by a fleet of Xalari warships. Cole's heart pounded in his chest as the ships surrounded them. Sarah didn't flinch. She had been here before, but Cole had never been this close to the heart of Xalari power. He couldn't help but feel like a small, vulnerable target in the vastness of space. When they landed, a group of Xalari soldiers was waiting for them. They didn't speak, but their presence was overwhelming. Sarah stepped out first, her back straight and her eyes focused. Cole followed close behind, feeling every gaze on him as they walked together toward the tribunal. As they entered the grand hall, the tribunal members sat high above them, their eyes cold and calculating. The leader of the tribunal, an older Xalari woman with sharp features, spoke first. Sarah, you returned to us after all this time, and with a human by your side. Sarah didn't flinch. She stood tall, her gaze unwavering. I returned because it is my choice, and this human is no enemy of yours. The tribunal leader's eyes narrowed. We shall see.